Good morning from the second age of reason. We are here to give you a little bit of musical insight and a little bit of current events and history insight. Now, the musical insight has to do with anthems. And what anthems do we have? I mean, mostly now we have national anthems. And we know about one that's been around a couple hundred years, and it's very well known, and you can hear it at sporting events and patriotic events. And it's kind of like da 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 da. That one, you all heard it before. And basically, the anthem describes a battle scene. And I mean, the melody's been around for close to 200 years, but maybe it's time to upgrade that melody. But there's another anthem that we've heard for a number of years. It's very familiar, very pompous, and let's see how that one goes. It goes dun 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 dun. So how does that work with the same words? Well, or words adjusted a little to fit. So it goes something like this. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, proudly we hail the twilight's last gleam, broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. Ramparts we watched did so gallantly stream. The lasers red glare and rebels bursting in air, proof through the night that the Empire was still there. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that kind of works. But don't get your hopes up so high, because now as we move to the informational part of this video, I want to go on that, the American Empire has been spending a lot of money to make everyone free. And actually, in comparison to Russia, they're spending like 10 times the money of Russia, and yet they're afraid, so afraid of Russia. And I don't understand why. But let's put it in perspective. Why could they be afraid? Because, and here is the great truth, because they can't win a war. They can't. They just don't know how to do it. Look at current events. They have battleships in the Pacific Ocean, the biggest ocean on the planet, and they're having collisions. They're bumping into other ships. Now, either everybody's asleep at the wheel and you just point the ship in some direction and go ahead and see what happens. But I don't think sailing is that way. You have navigators. You're supposed to have lookouts. And if you see something in front of you, like an island or a ship, you steer around it. Or you call them and say, hey, wake up, guys, move over. But they don't. They bump into each other. Either somebody's asleep at the wheel or extremely stupid. I don't know what the deal is. But that's not a good sign when you have, a more than $1 trillion military. Next, they can't win for a couple of other reasons. Because it's unprofitable. Because once you win, then you have to demilitarize. You have to convert that production back to civilian use. You have to reduce military expenditures as part of your budget. So there is no will on the part of the government or the militaries to win any war and say, we're done, it's okay, we have peace now. It's not going to happen. Secondly, there are no declarations of war. How can you win a war if you haven't even declared a war? doesn't make any sense. So they can't ever win a war. They just have AUMF and NDAA, which I think are accounting tricks to justify what they call authorization to use military force, which is another excuse to call it war. It's war without declaring an actual war. So I think it's a fraud. And so there's no will to win any war. They can't win. They haven't won a war since when? Did they win in Iraq? Did they win in Afghanistan? If they won, they would just fold up and come home. Did they win in Europe? Why are our garrisons still stationed there? Did they win in the Korea? Korea is still broken, and they're still talking war, war, war all the time. They haven't won the Korean War. They didn't win the Vietnam War. Was there a war declared? How can you declare victory if you haven't declared war in the first place? You can't. And you have to have an exit strategy. You have to define what is victory. Do they even know? They don't have a clue what victory is. How can you declare victory if you don't even know what it is? You say, well, the war in Afghanistan will be over when? When what? Tell me. The war in Iraq will be over when? We still have troops there. The war that was in Libya, when is that over? Is it over? It's not even a war. They didn't declare it. They can't win wars. And this is a very bad situation when you have the biggest military budget ever and you haven't won a war. Maybe you might be able to say World War II, that was a declared war, and we won, and Germany surrendered. See? There was a conclusion. There was demilitarization and retooling of production back to civilian purposes. That could be called a victory. Now, with the spreading of nationalists and neo-Nazis, I'm bringing that war into question, perhaps, if that's being tolerated. How many millions had to die from the Nazis? Both capitalist deaths and communists died at the hands of the Nazis. And other people as well. And yet you're going to have tolerance for this? I don't know. I think the lesson of history hasn't been learned quite yet. There is lessons to be learned. But basically my point is America can't win a war. And I think we need to adjust the budget to be consistent with that mission. Well, discuss below, comment, leave a rating on there, and we'll move forward to see what happens with this topic. America can't win a war. So until later, we'll be seeing you.